Hello everyone, I'm Roberto and you are listening to the Punks in Pubs podcast. I'm jumping in here because I want to tell you about a project I started with a friend of mine. We run a DIY and sustainable brand called Anxur. They spelled ANXUR. We do vegan sauces and condiments. All our ingredients are organic, seasonal and locally sourced. All our products are prepared on order and delivered across the UK. We just released our new winter season range of products, so go check it out on our website, theanxur.com. You can also find us in markets and vegan events around London. We will be at the Portobello Christmas Market on the 6th of December and at the Be the Future Vegan Market in Stoke Newton on the 12th and 13th of December. We are a very young business and we are trying to put our brand out there, so please don't forget to take a look at our Instagram page at AnxurUK and give us a follow. We also have a side project. We run a shitty and very badly edited podcast we started during the first lockdown called 2 Meters Away Punkcast. You can listen to it on Spotify. Basically, I just talk a lot of nonsense and play punk tunes. I hope you like our brand and what we do, and please support local small businesses. Thanks so much to Liam for this space, and we love Punks in Pubs. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
And welcome to the Punks in Pubs podcast. My name is Liam Bird and I hope you're all finding a crumb of happiness and joy wherever you can find it, because fuck, these are still dark times. But there is good news. There's a vaccine coming out. Hopefully we'll all be vaccinated by spring or summer next year. That's got to be good. I mean, get the fuck out of here if you're an anti-vaxxer, because guess what? Bill Gates does not want to put a chip in your body because A, he doesn't give a fuck about you. You are insignificant to him. But B, Google and Apple have already beaten to it because your mobile phones that we clutch in our hands like our life depends on it tells all those big fucking companies where we are, what we're doing, and what we want to buy. So, yeah. The vaccine's got fucking nothing to do with that. Just take your vaccine and jog on and live your life. So vaccines, positive news. In the UK, shows are starting to open up again. That's amazing. That means artists are getting paid. Venues aren't fucking closing down. That's all happening with social distancing in place. And Christmas is coming up. And that's always nice, isn't it? Who doesn't want to watch Elf for the 100th time? Greatest Christmas movie ever. Don't at me. Quickly, I would like to apologise for the lack of episode last week. Sadly, a band decided that they wanted to be a cunt and not turn up to our Zoom call that was planned in advance. Shit happens normally, I kind of brush it off, but this band approached me. So not turning up to the thing that you wanted to do because you wanted a bit of exposure on the podcast is a very fucking cunty thing to do. I won't name the band because they're quite a big New York hardcore band, but I'll let you guys be Sherlock Holmes. And if you want to guess, you can at Punks in Pubs on Twitter. Quick merch update. I only have a few Punks in Pubs t-shirts left, and I want to shift them out of my garage because I've got other stuff I need to put in the garage. So I've dropped down the price down to £14 a t-shirt. Go get your t-shirt, get a free sticker as well. T-shirts can be found on our Etsy webpage. Link to the page is in the episode description of this podcast, or just search Punks in Pubs podcast into whatever search engine you want to use and you will see our page there. Right, let's crack on because I've got a fantastic guest for you for episode 68. Episode 68 is me looking down my laptop camera, talking to the guitarist of the US street punk band The Casualties and the founder and owner of the indie label Charge Records. He is Jake Kolatis. Jake was a delight to talk to, such a good dude. We spoke for about an hour and we touched on a range of topics from the bullshit ideology around punk and selling out. We also talk about getting fucked over by promoters all over the world. I discover Jake's love for food, and Jake talks to me about being musically inspired by his mother, who played the mandolin. Jake also reveals why he relaunched his label Charged during COVID, and of course we talk Casualties. We hit on the early days, we talk about highlights, as well as the changed lineup. Talking of the changed lineup, I also felt it was really important that we touched on a difficult subject matter, that was the sexual assault allegations that were made against former lead singer George. I just want to give you a heads up on that. I will be back after my chat with Jake to wrap up the show, but before that, enjoy this. This is episode 68 with myself and Jake.
Starting 12 ACAB, 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 starting 12 ACAB. We've seen our power, power corrupts. We've seen our people beaten by the cops. We've had enough. Let's get together. Let's show them what's up.
I'm dyslexic, so sometimes I butcher people's names, so I want to make sure I get your last name right. Is it Kolatis?
It's all right. Kolatis.
Kolatis.
Yeah.
I think you're going to say yeah just to be polite now.
No, you're good.
Okay, no problem, man. All right, then, let's kick it off then. Looking down the internet at me is Jake Kolatis. As we have to start with every single episode, I think, how are you doing? Because these are fucked up times. These are COVID times. Normally, this podcast would be done across from our bar table, but we're doing the best we can.
Yeah, man. It's just keeping busy. Like with I got a little restaurant up in Montauk that I work at, and just try to like do that and fucking doing the little record label and stuff, and brought Charged back out of the Beyond the Grave kind of thing, so I'm doing that. And it's just anything like sort of keep busy and not just be on like a lockdown thing of where you're just like, just stuck in limbo kind of thing,
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk about Charge in a sec. But
Okay. Yes.
but I wondered like how much you actually miss now being asked how the tour's going, because I know that's a trope that most people in bands fucking hate that question of, oh, how's the tour going? Because it sounds like lazy people asking lazy questions. But I bet you're dying to hear that question now.
Yeah, I can't wait to be on the road again. It's one of those things where we'll just have to get through it. Those days will be back, we're right now just writing some music and trying to like prepare for the time when it is time to tour. But I'm not like totally I miss it, but I'm not totally like, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not totally distraught over it. I'm kind of like, okay, well, I've accepted it and this is what it is. And we'll be back like shortly, I feel like maybe like 6 months to a year. We got something booked for December. So,
that's
but
good,
it's just
yeah.
like a festival in Europe with like the Exploited and Funeral Dress and stuff. It's in Belgium, so
punk is kind of like a small community. Even though there's a lot of bands, it's still like everyone seems to know everyone. Have you spoken to your friends like on WhatsApp about like touring? Like, do the people who are touring musicians actually quite jonesing for it? Because something that I think people in this industry haven't spoken about really is like the mental health aspect of how not going on tour is actually might be affecting them, because it's the world that you guys know. It's your jobs, it's your 9 to 5.
Right. It sucks, but I mean, that's another thing. Like, what can you do really? Like, you just have to accept that we're not doing that right now. And then everybody who's an artist or anything has to like hustle a little bit and try to see what they can do in the meantime. Like, yeah. I loved like looking forward to some kind of show every 6 months or some kind of something to where we could like hit the road and, be out there. But it feels like it's not like happening right now, obviously, and not for a while. So I'm not saying anything new, but it's not like, you can get creative and start doing things that can like prepare you for later. But I think as far as, write music, start writing paragraphs, do your art, focus on the things that'll keep you busy and to keep you sane. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, mess with that corner of your room you've been waiting to all those things, it's like go through those records, start playing old stuff again, get inspired. It's pretty, I'm not bummed. It's kind of was almost like necessary for me a little bit, because I felt like I was getting a little jaded on aspects of music, so
it's good. So you've had like little respite, and now when you go, you're going fresh. So that's good to know. So
I started buying new records from bands again, and new bands. I checked out. There was a few Oi bands that I really want to check into. Chubby and the Gang, and then I saw a review about them. It looked really cool. The record looked cool. There's another band called the Royal Hounds, and now I think they're called New York City Royal Hounds or something like that. I wanted to check them out. There was like a slew of new punk bands that I just didn't. I would screenshot the album covers, and I was like, I'm gonna get to this one day soon. And then I finally, the other day, I was like, let me spend like $200 on vinyl.
It only took a pandemic for you to get into checking out new bands, man. So you're based.
It's harder as you get older,
Fucking right, it is. I read a study that says once you're over, I think it was like 21 or 22, your musical taste won't change. Like that is it. You are stuck in the road that you've created, and
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So you're based in Jersey City. Is that where you grew up?
Well, no, I'm not. Now I'm in Montauk, all the way out on the tip of Long Island. You can't actually go any further. There's a lighthouse, and then that's it. It's like a beach, and you just see waves.
Is that purposely because you wanted the waves? Is that kind of?
No, actually, I have like a little restaurant out here that I did. I did one in the city about 8 years ago, and then 3 years ago we grew to out here. And so I'm just kind of like keeping an eye on. It's the down season out here now, so I'm just keeping an eye on the place, and I'm living out here right now, and I was in Jersey City for like 15 years, but I like burnt out on it. I'm like, every once in a while, like every 10 to 15 years, you need to change. I think it's healthy, you know. Yeah. So I put my stuff in storage, and I was out of there.
So what kind of food you're rustling up?
It's like oysters, cocktails, light French flair, if you will.
Is that something you're passionate about, then, food, or is it like the business side you enjoyed?
I think it's like column A and column B. I think you have to be into both, you know? And being in the band, it kind of was like at an early age, I kind of felt like I would like save anything I ever made. And a lot of things I kind of like to just rely on myself, you know? So I didn't, you know, let's say like past members wouldn't show up to a show or like wouldn't be on the plane to start a tour, just stressed. And I was like, you know what? I need to do some things just for that I'm involved with outside of the band, you know? So that's when I did this stuff and I did a bunch of things. I did a tattoo shop. I did the record label, and just some things to like be like, let me see what this is like. Yeah. And finally the restaurant kind of clicked, and I could be part of a team that wasn't involved in that. Well, like that wasn't my band.
Yeah. So when
I love those guys.
So when you're touring, then do you go and check out food, like little food markets and restaurants and places? Yeah.
That's my favorite thing.
I mean, not particularly UK. UK's got a little better now at food, but like when you're in Germany or Italy, man, that must be like gold rush for you.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's cool. It's fun too, because I like to experience like other cultures' food. Who doesn't? You know, there's all these like cool shows that came out and exposed a lot of that, and then now I feel like, you know, you have everything from like the Anthony Bourdain to the Gordon Ramsay stuff, all that cool stuff, and it was just like entertaining to watch. And it was like, oh, you know, I'm in that town once in a while. I'm gonna go check this out. But I also like seeing like weird statues, and like if something's like sort of haunted and I can have a drink there too, that's like my favorite thing.
I mean, that's literally every pub in the UK, mate. Like every pub is haunted, so you always got some creepy old fuck staring back at you. So I
love it. It was like in Nottingham. We went to Ye Olde, the oldest pub in like
Jerusalem.
The world.
That's Nottingham's my hometown. Ye Olde Jerusalem. Yeah, it's the oldest pub. It's built into the cave. It's built into the caves of Nottingham.
Yeah. That was fucking cool. That was really cool.
It's not cool if you're 6'4" because you hit every fucking post as you walk in because it's a really low down ceiling, so you're kind of ducking to get in to find a table. But yeah, it's the oldest
Right.
pub in.
Well, I'm 5'9", so it's perfect for me.
I see. People were shorter back in the old
Yeah.
days. So did you grow up in New York City then?
No, I didn't grow up there. I grew up in New Jersey, but I spent every second I could in my 20s and actually teenage years. Because I joined the band in '93. I was 16, so I was just like on a bus to New York City every second I could, you know. And I barely graduated high school because of it.
So what kind of people were you then? Were you like school's just something to get through, or did you actually enjoy school?
I think there's elements of the school I went to had cool stuff like. It was cool, and this was why I had some good friends there. And the high school, I was right on the border of this town, and so I went to this high school called North Hunterdon. And they had like cooler things for people like us at the time. Like it was like a cool screen printing class, like some cool art classes. So I opted to do all that because that's what I was into. And then the screen printing thing was really cool because I started printing Casualties like. Shirts and stuff. I just wanted to see what I could do. And then all of a sudden I started making our own some of our own like t-shirts and stuff. And I was like, yo, give me some art, let me do this. And so it kind of started with that. And we were at the time the band that was showing up to shows with like multicolored t-shirts and stuff and our peers didn't have that. They just had white on black, the same old. And I was like, yo, let's get let's see if we can do like the old, like, you know, Exploited or GBH shirts, or like even like some of the metal ones. I was always kind of like curious how like bands like, let's say like big bands like Iron Maiden or Metallica had like a fucking 100 colors on a t-shirt. I was like, I want something like different and cool like that for our shows. And we were just a little DIY band. So if I could get 3 colors on a shirt, that was a big deal, you know? Back then it was a big deal. Now it's not as much of a big deal, but.
So were you always quite creative rather than academic? Was that always your skill?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think getting out there, like, you know, it was more important to go travel and go see the world. And to me, you know,
yeah.
It's different for everybody, but for me, it was like more important to just get out there because the band was calling, you know, people were interested in the band in like Europe, and we're really starting to get a little underground spark going, and the US, and we put the time in. And finally, after about 5-6 years of that, it started getting interest in other places across the seas and Japan and all stuff. And I was like, dude, I want to go see all this and do it now. Like, you know?
Yeah.
And I couldn't pay attention in school anyway. So it didn't really, I couldn't wait to get out of there and just go out and see my friends and play music and like hit the city, you know? And I wasn't even drinking like heavily or anything, you know? It was just more about like experiencing going to CBGBs, who's playing every weekend. It was just fun. I loved that. I have no regrets about that. No regrets.
So was music something that was kind of brought into the household? Was it something that was always being played, or was it something you discovered outside of the house?
No, my mom, she was like a mandolin player, and all her sisters, they had like a little band.
Yeah.
So I think when she saw that I was kind of like the artistic child, that was kind of like, hey, why don't you, because my grade school before high school, you know, 5 through 8, it was kind of like they had like a clarinet class and like a drums class, but they didn't have a guitar class, right? And so my mom was like, well, why don't you try to like learn this? So I was sort of started learning outside of school, and I was taking little lessons. And then once I could like sort of play like the Ramones or the Foreskins or something cool like that, I was like, took a break on lessons because I just wanted to rock. And then I just, met some people to jam with, like anybody does probably. Yeah. And then just started rocking. And then I would go to shows in the city and met up with a bunch of punks there. And then one day, after seeing the Casualties, I became friends with them to an extent. And George and I befriended each other. And then one day he needed a guitarist, and I just said yes. I knew I couldn't even play half of those songs, but just like, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then sort of learned with the band, and we all grew together, you know.
You bullshit until you make it. That's
what
you do,
happened.
Man. Yeah.
Like, I knew I could barely play this, but this was the story. I asked him from the Blank 77, because he was a good guitarist. He's still a great guitarist. He plays all the instruments. And at the time I was like, dude, I need you to teach me these songs. And he could like listen. He was one of those guys at the time where he could listen to it before I could. And he could be like, here's how you play that song. So he would teach me them, and then like everything, you know? So he was really key in me getting to the point where I could show up and jam with those guys.
I've heard in interviews about you said that you're like 12 or 13 going to punk shows like with other people. Were your family not freaking the fuck out, or were they quite liberal and quite laid back and go, he's just discovering music?
Yeah, no, my mom was really cool about that, because I was like spiking my hair and shit at like probably like 12. I really looked up to bands like, and I still do, like The Accused and The Exploited. They were very key in my life to be like, I want to play like this. I want to look like this. I want this way of life, you know? And then after that, it started to be like, you know, you get into music and you're like, whoa, there's shows. You can go see some of these bands, or you can go see little bands that nobody knows and all stuff. So it just spiraled. And that was like about 12. Then 13, I started going to things with my older friends, and usually my friends were older, you know? And so I would hitch a ride with them, and I had no, like I said, I had no interest in drinking. I just had interest in, I wasn't cool yet. So I just wanted to buy merch and like buy a t-shirt, buy an album. I always made it a point to get a record or a tape, mostly tapes at that time, but 7-inches were around. And then I started getting into vinyl. But anyway, like my mom was very cool letting me express myself. She never had any kind of, we had a few arguments, of course, you know, but, because of academics, you know, but, there's this one argument we had, I'll never forget. I was like buying records all the time from like England, you know, like 1982 bands and stuff, and rare 7-inches, and I still have everything, and I love it all, right? So like I was ordering records all the time. They would come in, I would just like sit with a 7-inch in my room just playing the music, and I remember doing not too well in school, and she was one time she was like, I'm sick of this punk and oi shit. We had this big blowout, but I never forgot that. Like, she was like, I'm sick of this punk and oi bullshit. It was funny, dude. Because I'm still into the same shit. Yeah.
So what kind of music was your mum listening to then? What did she do? What did she enjoy?
They were like, you know, my mom and my dad was like Harry Chapman and, you know, like some pretty like stuff from their generation, their era. And so like, I want to say like, you know, Simon and Garfunkel. There was like Willie Nelson. You know, I don't hate any of that. I'm just saying like, I was like, you know, I want it loud and crazy. And then, so then, you know, to get serious for a second, then like when I was 13, my dad passed. And so my mom was kind of like, she was kind of like carrying the household. So I think it was like, my brother was already out of the house, and then it was just me and my sister. And my sister was kind of my mom's buddy, and they were, it's because she was younger, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like coming into my teenage years at like 13 and just being like, I was going out skateboarding every night. I was probably out a little more than I should have, but, you know, I think my mom was just like, he's all right. He's just being a teenager. And like I said, man, I was just like, I think it was like one of those things in a weird way. When you have one parent, they kind of like, just like, as long as you're okay and you're doing whatever, you kind of like didn't really have a lot of rules as you might if you had two parents, you know, in a weird way contributed to me just like being out in New York City at 13 and 14 and just being like going to shows and, you know.
So the shows that you're going to, that you kind of touch on CBGBs. So were you going to those matinee hardcore shows?
Honestly, it was CB's was like a little later in the night. My first ones were like this place called ABC No Rio. It was this tiny little basement, dude. I swear to God, it was like 10 by 12 room with a stage. And it was right down in the Lower East Side. And it was like, that was where I was going. This is like an anarchist collective, super punks. Like there's a band that Denied, Os Rotten would play there. Saw the Casualties there, Public Nuisance. The names go on and on and on. And so like, that was where I was like, whoa. And then I got introduced to CBs a little later, not much later, but like, 2 years back then seems like an eternity, you know? So, and yeah, the hardcore shows were cool. I just like Warzone was really cool. They crossed over into the punk stuff a lot. Like, so I remember seeing those guys a lot. I always would see Rabies on St. Mark Street. And then, so I saw them at Wetlands a bunch, but I wasn't just going to hardcore. It was like more like punk, you know?
Yeah.
And then I kind of like got into both. And, scenes, when you're younger, scenes are so separated. And then you get older and you realize how stupid that was. And then you go to like both, you know?
Well, I've heard about ABC No Rio because it's a collective whereabouts they really had a strong ideology on like, none of that violent shit, none of that homophobia, none of that racism.
Yeah.
Because CBGBs,
it was all very...
just because CBGB's towards the end of it supposedly started becoming quite a toxic masculinity kind of bro fest, and I don't know. I've only read about this because obviously I wasn't there at the time. Was that something that you kind of felt as well, or is that something that's kind of hyperbolic?
I agree with both things. I think it also depends on what shows you go to. ABC No Real was definitely cool on the anti-racist, anti-homophobia, but it wasn't. It was a good middle ground. Like, you had Neil Robinson from Tribal War, a bunch of very political people, but you didn't have like, it was also fun though, too. It wasn't like, it wasn't till later to where you had to start, like, it got a little too, cops, like punks being cops. And it was just, then it started to get not fun. And then I think CBGB's was having like really cool street punk, shows. And we were allowed to play a lot of those shows. And then it was like, we finally got big enough to play CBs. And then Coney Island High was happening. So it was like punk without the rule book, kind of, because ABC No Rio got really like strict on the rules. And like, then all of a sudden bands had to send in their lyrics. And it's just like, it was like too difficult for punk rock. And it's like, of course I get some of the reasons why, but it got a little too much. And then you had a lot of hateful kind of ultra extreme, political people. And it just took all the fun out of it. When you start being a cop, then it takes all the fun out of punk, Yeah. So, right. So not that the original ideas were cool and I was on board and it was there before I was around. So when I was going there, I was like, I love all this, and then CB started having like better shows, and Coney Island High had better shows, and we just kind of left that in the dust. I like playing with bands that were fun and didn't have to talk, have a political sermon after every 2 songs, Yeah. I wanted to like slam dance, dude. You know what I mean?
Well, I've heard that like your first ever show, like someone just spat beer straight in your face.
Yeah.
And
it's huge, dude.
Yeah. So
I mean, terrifying, dude. It's terrifying.
That'd be terrifying for any fucker, man. Like anyone in their 20s or even 30s playing their first show, you get about ready to play, and some fucking big old dude just spits beer in your face. How do you compare? Like, was it like, this is thrilling, this is fucking or was it like, dude, 16, what the fuck?
I was 16, and I was like, this is gonna be interesting, because I was scared of you're 16. I was fucking terrified of everybody, and everybody's like older, and people had facial tattoos when it wasn't like a thing, and it was gnarly. It was like, So this would have been 93, right around. That was probably my first show. There's pictures of it somewhere. And dude, I was like a sophomore in high school, and I just remembered like everybody was like huge, like tall, and you're like older, and just fucking like it was super punk. I was just not like, I didn't know what to expect, and I was like, okay, we're gonna play. And it was like rowdy, man, really not violent, but like
energy,
but violent, like yeah. And so I remember this one dude, like huge. I mean, like this guy was like, I think he was like a UFC fighter or something, tall, like dude. And he's like decked out. And he comes, of course, like first or second song. And I'm like, oh shit. He's like this. I'm like looking up. I'm like, comes up, dude, grabs me. I swear I got wrapped by the shirt. And it was like, boo. And it was like just booze. Like, and I was like, all right. Here we go. Hope I live through this fucking thing. I'll never forget it, man. But it was great though, because what a great way. Like you had to earn some stripes. You know, you had to get dissed and see if like you wouldn't like fucking run away or something. You know, like, and there was fights that happened, all kinds of stuff. So you kind of had to be like, you couldn't just like walk into the scene. You know?
Did you turn to the rest of the guys and go, did you just fucking see that guy? Like...
No, they were getting dragged off stage too. Like George and Colin were like getting ripped off the stage. It was so crazy. I was like, this is like fucking punk, dude. I was like into it. But I was kind of like glad they left me alone a little bit after that, you know? Because I think it was very obvious that I was like a super young kid at the time. So I think is like, I didn't get my ass kicked, but it was just like pretty gnarly, man.
Joined in 93 as the new guy. How long did it take you until you started to feel like you got your stamp in the band?
I think it was like after I felt like it came down to recording. So we did a compilation. My first ever recording experience was on a compilation called Pogo Attack. And then after that, it was the second single it was the second single called The Fucking Way of Life. And it was like I felt like it was, if you compare those two 7-inches, 40-ounce Casualties to A Fucking Way of Life, I was into it at that time. I like earned my chops a little bit, and then it was kind of like I'm still heavy into these bands, but it was like heavy into GBH and Blitz, and you could hear that influence. It was, the second single was way faster and way more distorted and like loud, you know. And everybody, it wasn't just because of me, but I was like writing songs like that. Two of the songs were older ones, but two of the ones, like I was listening to like the Actives, Threats were cool. George turned me on some like stuff like Defects. So it was like shit that was like, it was moving. Those bands were moving, dude. So it was like, but they were like forgotten, you know? So we were like resurrecting a style that had been dead for like so long, you know? And there was not many bands doing it. There was a few New York City bands doing it. Like The Denied and Public Nuisance and Blank 77. They were my friends. They got me into a lot of punk. But those were the bands kind of like repping this like cool street punk thing that wasn't, you know, before it was, I guess maybe it was just like punk rock, but you know what I mean? It was like really fucking cool. I had a lot of fun with all those people, you know. I don't see much of them anymore, but it was really key into like getting stuff going. I'd probably strayed away from that question. I don't know.
No, it's so good. It's so good.
I answered any of that correctly, but
that short period though, from 93 to 94, 94 is obviously known for being like the kickoff for another wave of punk with bands like Green Day, Offspring, NoFX,
right?
And like a
Rancid was the band. Out of
I was going to
those
say
bands.
Rancid, yeah. Who probably be the gateway. It would be a gateway into like the Casualties. So Like at that time, were you looking and going, "This is coming for us. We're going to be caught up in this wave"? And then when it didn't really happen, were you like, "What the fuck? What happened?"
No, I felt like it. I felt like it did. We were just a lot more like the Casualties were like a more like underground sound, and we weren't really. We didn't have the California thing as much as, you know, I think that Rancid would have been the closest thing to us, and they were a great band, and they even helped us. But our sound was gnarly. We didn't know anything about recording budgets and all that stuff. And I'm extremely happy with, I didn't feel like I was left out of it as per se, as like, we just weren't from California.
Yeah.
And we didn't sound like those California bands, you know, but I think out of those that you mentioned, we would have had more in common with like Rancid, and they were friends, and they're still cool guys. Of course. And, you know, so I kind of like, it didn't really pertain to me or the band at the time. We were on our own path, and we were playing like, you know, we were playing Fireside Bowl in Chicago and cool shit like that. We were like slowly going up, you know, it wasn't like some big fat guy with a cigar came over and said, here's like 50 grand to record. Like, that didn't happen.
Were you prepared? Were you thinking like, you know, like sometimes as you're driving long drives, you were like, if someone does come up and offers that money, like, because at the time there's a lot of bands who were going to majors, and majors were sniffing around, and obviously in the punk community that's a no, which for me, I'm like, get your money, man. But I mean,
right, me too.
So
totally into that.
So at the time then, were you kind of like fantasizing of, oh yeah, if someone comes and offers that money, we're taking it? Yeah,
a little bit. But, you know, the label that would have been closest to that was Side One Dummy. They finally got the band proper management. It got us out of like just playing small places where it would just be like, because there was an audience for us. And then finally we started doing like Warped Tour, and like really we were still fucking gnarly and like still like playing heavy music. But finally, we got to record in a way that could really bring the band to the table sonically. That's like how we all felt. So we finally got a real recording budget and recorded with Bill Stevenson. And On the Front Line was kind of our break out of just being like Maximum Rock and Roll's favorite band or some shit, you know?
And did you feel that straight away once that album was released? Did you feel like, oh, this momentum is with us? Like, let's keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did take it for as far as we could, you know. Again, dude, we were not writing, like, nothing about the Casualties was like gonna ever be super radio friendly, you know. We might have got a little splash of stuff, but we were like the Motorhead of punk, you know. It was like, it's gonna be gnarly, it's gonna be fast, and it's gonna be consistent from album to album, and that's what we wanted. I didn't want to try to write anything, like, it wouldn't be real if we were writing shit to be on the fucking radio or something, which we don't care about now. We didn't care about that.
And so the Casualties had like quite a lot of a change up until 97, and in interviews I've heard you say that part of the reason of that was drug abuse in past members. Was there ever was there ever a point where that nearly put a stop to the whole band? No, because, you know, at the time we wanted to just keep like moving forward, and like we were like, we even knew then certain members were just it was just where they were in life. There was no hatred, but like some people would kind of they were into hard drugs, and George and I weren't into that, and we had to make some changes, and then we got some other people, and they didn't want to like leave their jobs or risk their relationships and things like that. So it got hard to find like the do or die types. So, and then we finally got, Meggers, and then we finally got Rick, and you got people that were like down for the long haul, you know? Yeah.
And it takes a little bit of that, because otherwise you don't move forward, man. Yeah. It might be really rad to have like 2 records out that people cite from, 20 years later, and then you're just out in purgatory, or you're fade into obscurity. And none of us I never wanted that. I was like, I want to be like, keep going and be out there and be known and be sure that we made our mark, and we would be in record stores and like, now they're gone, but like, it was kind of like, I want to make a mark and have it be fucking there forever and just be like, love it or hate it. But there was like in the C section of the.
Okay, for people who are listening, Jake has just, unfortunately, his line has just gone. Hopefully, he will be able to get back on soon enough. There you go. Your audio's connecting now, supposedly. There you go.
There we go.
There you are.
I just started hearing you. Sorry.
That's all right. You okay?
Yeah, my phone died. What I was saying before is like, we didn't want to be an obscure band. We wanted to be like a Bad Religion. We wanted to be like, a GBH. We wanted to be like out there. It was like when you went to a record store, I wanted there to be like a section for us, I wanted there to be a Casualties, and there is now, and there will be. So we've kind of done what I wanted to do.
There's a whole festival for you, mate. It's called Rebellion. It seems to be like the perfect festival for you guys.
I mean, I love those bands. I was very happy to play that in '96. That was our first time in England, and we were probably the first American band to play that. I think that's the first American band to play that historically was us.
So one of the things that you as a band you've done, I think probably more than any other punk band, is that you've gone and traveled a bit of South America. And like, it's an area of the world that I've always wanted to visit. And I think it's an area of the world also that, like, there's quite a big punk community there that's just like not valued because they're just not westernized.
Yeah, I think, and it's tough. It's because there's like, some people might say it's because like the money, but you go with, some people promise you things and then they rip you off. But it's like, it takes a lot of trial and error. We kind of like went down there a bunch of times. We've been to Mexico countless times, and we've been to Brazil. We've been to Central America. We did a lot of places that a lot of my peers in bands have not played and will never play, because we did an album in Spanish. We had like 2 Latinos in the band, and like it kind of always transferred. It gave us a passage, or rite of passage to go down there. But it's also tough down there, man. It was pretty gnarly, but one day you're playing a show in Nicaragua and it's awesome, and then the next day you're on a fucking moped on an island with 2 volcanoes on it. There was cool shit like that. I loved it. I still love it. We did Honduras like a year, maybe 2 ago. We did Guatemala, not Honduras. We had never been to Honduras. I'd like to go to Honduras. Would be cool. But dude, Guatemala. I never thought we always joked around. It was so funny because Rick and I would always joke around and be like, dude, we should do like a live in Guatemala or something. And then we actually went there.
How did you end up making those contacts then, of actually getting there? Because I think a lot of bands would like to give it a go, but like you said, I think it's kind of that sketchy element of it, of like, are we going to get completely fucking ripped off? Are we going to lose a shit ton of money? Yeah, it's
tough. It's like we've done all right sometimes, and then other times got promised things, and then but that even happened in Australia too. We got fucked over really bad. We went all the way there, and you always kind of like, you always want to do the show. That's where they get the artists. Like, well, if you don't, you almost have to pull that card. It sucks. It's like, you got to be like, look, we're not going on stage because you have to pay us. And it sucks to pull that card but we learned our lesson. We did that a few times in South America and got fucked over, and then everybody points the finger and blames other people. And like, so if your show isn't doing the work that it's supposed to do because the promoter didn't decide to promote it and nobody knows about it, then they act like they don't gotta pay you. It's shit like that. And it's just like, grow the fuck up, man. I'm like, we're men with families and we have like things to do, and it's not this, you can't just fuck a band over just because you feel like you don't deserve to pay them. And so we did Australia. And we got all the way up till we were like, no, these shows are going good. They're going big. We had like, it was a festival tour called Hits and Pits. And there was this fucking dickhead organizer that he disappeared. He had to fall off the face of the earth because he owed so many people so many money. He promised all these bands all this money. And then slowly, after like the 6th show, and it was like a 2-week tour, after like the 6th show or halfway mark, he wasn't paying anybody. And his crew weren't getting any money, and it was just kind of like, you can't fuck people over, man. And then, so it went downhill, and they never had it again because he ripped not only us, but a lot of other bands that were on that tour. So it's tough, you know, you gotta like weigh out all the things. And sometimes it's like, you want to like, sometimes you're like, fuck it, let's just get there, play. And, you know, you went, you got to play in a weird fucking place. That's always cool to me. It's a lot easier to do when you're fucking like between 20 and 30. And then it gets a little more difficult between 30 and 40. And you kind of got to be like, you can't just, you know, time is valuable and you can't just get dicked around, you know?
Of course.
And that's for any band. I think it's like terribly disrespectful for any band to have to go through that. And, you know, karma comes around, you know what I mean? So, and then, you know, you have your dickheads out there kind of like, well, punk's not about money. Yeah, well, it is when you fucking shelled out a shit ton of money to get there, all your equipment and all your other things. It's not like they don't see any of that. So it's like, you kind of got to remind people, like, this shit isn't just fucking like a cakewalk, dude, you know? While they're at home getting like good educations, having good relationships and having a nice little life, you know, it's like, and they're ones on the interwebs being like, you know, punk shouldn't be about money. Like, no, bands, I believe bands, I've always said this, I believe bands should get paid, and they should get paid well.
I suppose now is a time whereabouts it's kind of coming even truer with a lot of people streaming music and bands not getting the money they probably deserve because everyone's stayed at home, so everyone's listening to a lot more music and, like you said, discovering new bands. There's these new bands now who are getting dicked over just because the way that, what is it, like 0.1% of whatever stream it is for our money. So yeah, it's fucked up, man.
It's, you know, part of me is grateful, like, oh, cool, 7.4 million people were checking this out. And I did the math, and it's like, so if you I did all the, you know, like the fun math where it's like, okay, so 24 hours, 365 days, and it added up to like 32 years of someone listening to like us constantly. I'm sure like one day would be enough to like, you would want to kill yourself. But there's the kind of thing where like, yeah, a lot of people that should be designed a little bit better to like at least kind of contribute to the artist, you know, but like the artist always gets fucked over, and it's not in Europe. Well, in Europe, they take care of bands very well, you know. It's like the US is not set up that way, like at all. And I don't think England is either. No,
not at all.
But you go to Europe and they take care of bands. You have a place to stay. You have good accommodations. You have good food. You get hot food, you arrive at the show, there's snacks, there's just like little things that like make it like a little bit better for bands. Like, okay, we can like do this. And they're, you know, in Germany, some of the towns have money set aside for the art. The USA would never fucking do that. It sucks. It's like shit should change because there should be space for people that do art, and art should be appreciated, and music is fucking art, you know?
You would think such a small place like England that it's kind of like produced all this music.
Music. Dude, I love it. It's my favorite.
You would think that we would cherish it a lot more and really encourage arts to continue because it's one of our biggest exports. We are nothing in this world. We are a tiny little fucking speck of dust, but yet we've created like such good music. But we just we don't appreciate it, and we don't nurture it, and it's a sad thing. And we're always
and that might be why you have bands like you. I mean, that might be why just when I think about it, that might be why you have guys that are like, you know, like take like Ozzy and like Lemmy and stuff. Like they're probably just like, I'm gonna maybe go live a nice life somewhere where I can be like, you know, a little more accessible. And it's like they get out of England, not because England's like a lame place or something, but just because like maybe it's like, you know, you get a little more money elsewhere. You know, that's kind of how I feel about it out here too.
this one is a bit of a tricky question, so I understand how you might feel a bit like, fuck this, I don't want to talk about this, but I think it's an important one. In 2013, lead singer George was accused of sexual assault and rape. That led to protests called Boycott the Casualties, which led to shows being cancelled. I've never been put in a situation where my best friend and the person who has always been by my side has been accused of that. So my question really is, like, how was that period in your life, standing next to a person who was accused of such horrific things?
Well, I guess the short version would be it wasn't very fun, and a lot of shit was slung at us and smeared and all that stuff. And I think that I didn't feel, look, I slept on all the floors. I was always in the same places. And I didn't feel that those were accurate at all. And I also think that, it was a time that was kind of, not backed up by a lot of fact. And I felt like, I knew the dude and I was with the dude a lot. So I just kind of was like one of those things where, shit got slung and, he didn't really have a fair, shot there. And it was just that. It was, what can you do? It's, what am I going to do? Chase down people and fucking sue them, and they're just not going to, So it was like, I felt like, we stood by him for another 4 years, and he didn't want to do the band anymore. And it wasn't that. It's like we went through that, and we played with him for another 4 years, and then it was just like kind of like I think his time was just up in the band, and he, there's a lot of things with that where it was like. Just think someone comes to a point where they don't want to work anymore and they didn't want to be there anymore, so we kind of just parted ways, and that was that. It was unfortunate, but what can you do? I mean, we just got through it the best we could, and we felt like, hey, we're not going to just kick him in the curb because we don't believe that. And we were, like I said, I was in those places, and if I had ever seen anything like that, I would never stayed in the band with someone.
The band allegedly put out a statement saying it's not very punk rock to believe in women accusing George. I don't
know if that was. I'm really not sure what.
So it's not very punk rock to believe the women who accused George of rape. That's allegedly something that was put out by management.
We never said that.
No,
I don't know. No.
Is there any part looking back though that you wish that the band kind of dealt with it better, or did you just feel like you dealt with it as good as you could?
In hindsight, I guess you could always deal with something better. It's always easy to be like, oh, we should have went back and did this or did that. But I mean, we dealt with it the best we could and moved on, and, that's, well, what is that 20 years ago? And then, David's been in the band for almost 4 or 5 years. So, we're moving forward. We got new albums out, and that's that, my friend. Yeah.
Well, I mean, having Dave in the band, I don't know if he still is. I think he's doing stuff with Crumb Bums again. But how much was that kind of having new energy in the band and having just this new kind of shiny toy, I suppose?
It was great, man. It was great. It was a breath of fresh air because I think it was a lot of things. It was positive energy, and we just sort of took it was kind of like the thing where when a plane is flying on 3 engines and has 4, you're always never to your full capacity, and then we got this guy in the band, and he was writing songs, and I was like, whoa. And he was driving, and I was like, whoa. And it was all this cool stuff, and it was just kind of I couldn't believe how on board this dude was, and he was sober too, and he is sober. So it was a breath of fresh air, man. It was we had energy, and it wasn't a downer, and there was a lot of negativity kind of vanished too. And the across the board, way more positive. And I love it, man. Every day it's great. And he's a great friend. He's always been a great friend. We couldn't have found a better fit, and energy's way better. And the involvement, it's now 4 guys in a band, as opposed to 3 and dead weight,
So let's talk about Charge Records then, a label that you established back in '98 until 2008, whereabouts I think you just kind of gave it up, and now you've relaunched it and releasing new editions. You released, I think, Punk United as the Punk United compilation, I think, was one of your first re-releases. So why have you decided to bring back an independent label in a time of COVID? It just seems like such a crazy idea.
It was the thing where like it I we we were getting this like stimulus check over here, and I was like, you know what? I've been talking about this for a while, and instead of like just stockpiling this money, I was like, let me just kick up the label again. And I used all that money to sort of start a project again. And my buddy Tony from Boulevard Trash, he was like, hey, he was kind of encouraging, and so we teamed up together to do the comp. And I was like, so there hasn't been a cool comp out in a while, especially not a street punk one. And so we kind of did that together, and we like, it was great. It was like it couldn't have been a more like refreshing thing. And I think that it's what the scene kind of needed too. And so it was like it was super punk, and it was like, it kind of made me think to start up the label again.
So you've gone back and you've re-released Monster Squad's album Strength Through Pain, as well as Antidote's album My Life. Is that whereabouts you see a gap in the market for like limited runs of albums of old? I don't know if you've gone again. Oh, there you are. There you are.
Hey, oh shit! Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
That's all good, man. I'll ask the question again. So yeah, you've re-released Monster Squad's album Strength Through Pain, as well as the Antidotes album My Life. Is that where you see a gap in the market for like limited runs of old albums that probably haven't seen the light of day for a while?
Yeah, that was cool to just come out swinging. I have a new band. Those two albums like were great to like bring back in, and I kind of felt like they weren't around, like you're saying. So we redid those, and just for like the new generation, and then and then I put a lot of like extra cool stuff in there. Like I felt like it was like like an old title on CD, and then like a patch sticker. Just like I always think it's cool to like give a little because I was always excited to get extra stuff when I would order records back then.
Yeah.
So it was great, man. I really felt like it's fun to do this. And then so I brought and you just hope to break even, really. And then oh god, well, let's see. We got a new band coming out. And that is Whole Hog. We announced Monday. And they're a fucking excellent band. And that's what I was saying. I was like kind of thinking like I didn't want to just become a reissue label, but I wanted to like put out stuff that was, I wanted to put out, come out of the gate swinging, like just put out a couple like home runs, and then like give it cool packaging, and then introduce a new band, see how it does. So we'll find out this week.
So is that something that you've learned from your Charge Records, I suppose? Point one is that like lessons learned, we bringing it back, like do some safeties, get some stuff where it's going to get traction, and then release like the new bands that you want to push? No,
because this was it. This is the coming back. It wasn't like that. I didn't have that back then. I won't do CDs anymore, and I probably won't do like I probably won't do like 1,000 records because I don't have room for it. But it's like kind of because you get rid of a bunch and then they kind of trickle out after that. And I'm just trying to see if I can't put a couple new things out, and like there's an outlet for like bands like this that want to put something out, get some new music on.
I mean, the vinyl,
as opposed to the old stuff, some of the old stuff too. I always thought there's a good mix,
So let's wrap this up then. So a band like the Casualties don't survive 30 years without learning a few things. So I mean, so for
say that again.
So for you then, what has been the one bit of advice that stayed with you all this time, and another bit of advice that was given to you by an old timer that was just the worst advice ever given?
Oh, worst advice. Yeah. Gee, I don't know, man. I don't hold on to bad advice in a way of like.
But I mean, when I say,
I don't really crucify people or smear them, so
you don't have to name names.
Well, I try not to. But I guess my fuck you would have been to people that sort of underestimated the Casualties, and like kind of there's a lot of we got our share of bad reviews, and so my middle finger to that is carrying on, and like we had our share of people talking shit about us. And so my middle finger to everybody is that I'm still here. I'm still doing it. I'm still putting out records, and we have 7.4 million streams. So that's my fuck you to everybody.
What about the positive though? What's the best advice you've been given?
To stay with it, stay the course. Friends of mine in older bands that stuck it out, and just, you know, it's kind of like what you would think. It would be like, you know, stay persistent, be dedicated, and then have fun. And that's probably one of the reasons why I like that Dave's in the band, because I have a lot of fun now, you know.
Well, I mean, mate, this has been fun. So thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you for taking the time to interview me.
Thank you so much to Jake for taking the time to speak to me. Make sure you go check out Charge Records. A link for that is in the episode description of this podcast. While you're searching the web, make sure you go and support the sponsor of this week's podcast, Angzur, I think I pronounced that right, Angzur Vegan Sauces and Condiments, as well as Roberto's 2 Meter Away Punk podcast. Again, links to those are in the episode description of this podcast. You can also find all those links I've mentioned today on our social media accounts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Just search at Punks in Pubs. If you would like to sponsor the podcast for free, then please email punksinpubs@gmail.com. That's it for this week. We will be back in 2 weeks' time for the last show of the year. Till then, stay well, stay safe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.